Hello and welcome. This is the Market Wrap. Well, we have Neeraj Shah here with me and Agam Vakil, and we're here to discuss and to talk about how we've seen the markets come through for this week and what can we expect as we move into next week. So without any more delay, let's start by taking a look at the benchmark indices. Neeraj, well, it has been a week and very tough week for the markets at this point. And of course, this is the intraday trade. But let's take a look at those gunners and losers on a weekly basis and see how that has actually turned out.
So I think, so let's get the 5-day period up on the screen. And yeah, this is pretty much it. Actually, if you get the 5-day period, it'll show a slightly different picture. But Bajaj Finance still remain amongst the top gainers in this week gone by.
Right.
And it was interesting because that was to be anticipated. But the key point is, this is the picture now. But the key point is, save for HDFC, Agam, we don't have any of the major heavyweights participating in the gainers or the losers list. So you don't have Reliance Industries. You don't have HDFC Bank.
Right.
You don't have ITC amongst the stocks which are participating in the top gainers or the top losers list. So a bit of fringe players in the Nifty 50 coming and playing their part on the gainers on the losing side.
Right, and I reckon would be the same when it comes to the NSE 500. So if we can play up the same parameter for the NSE 500, it'll give us an idea about how we've seen broader markets pan out. So let's bring that up. And where you see, well, you'll probably find Ujjivan and Equitas right at the top of the list in the decliners, considering the fact that we did see severe weakness, and a lot of this was on the back of today's declines. 8KMI Software, of course, is one of the other ones which continues to decline, and it's the same for your relatively weaker counters which are under pressure because of governance issues such as Infibeam and Bombay Dyeing. It's two. But on the gaining end, of course, we also have Intellect Design Arena as well as Oberoi Realty. A lot of these have advanced on the back of earnings. But is there anything else that stands out for you, Neeraj?
No, so just a couple of finer points, and you would have some thoughts here as well. But Oberoi Realty results were looking okay, and therefore the stock has done well.
Right.
Keep in mind, Ujjivan and Equitas, and I think that price performance or the damage that we've seen in Friday's session, and as a result of that, these two names out here, Ujjivan and Equitas, 21% apiece. It doesn't seem like there could be a bounce that will come out too dramatically, because there's a holdco discount now that is firmly etched in the minds of traders or investors about what will happen to Ujjivan and Equitas.
Right.
And therefore, it might just keep the stocks subdued. They may not fall too much because there's a drastic fall in Friday's session, but we might well see the stocks remaining subdued for the foreseeable future. So those two names out there in the losers list have fallen because there were some definitive news flows which led to these falls. Otherwise, the Dilip Bilcons, 8KMI, Bombay Dyeing, Infibeam are all falling for reasons which are not necessarily new reasons.
Right, fair enough. And finally, I want to pull up the kind of levels that we can watch out for as we move into trade next week, based on the kind of traction that we've seen in options. And if we can have that on your screen, what you realize is that the 10,000 mark, the 10,000 put, which had the maximum open interest, that continues to hold at this point in time. As you can see here, this is the bar there. But say for that, you don't really have too much of an accumulation in any of the other options, and that includes the put and calls, which means that the markets at this point in time are only certain, to a certain extent, that they're likely to see the Nifty hold on to 10,000. What levels? That's going to be a guess, in my opinion, according to the data here, Neeraj.
Yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see what technical analysts have to say if indeed the US markets bounce back post the GDP numbers today.
Right.
And there's a bit of a positive cue coming in on Monday morning.
Right, there you have it. But what can we expect as we move in? Well, we spoke to Nilesh Shah of Envision Capital. In fact, Neeraj and Devina spoke to Nilesh Shah, and he says that there could be some more pain in store. This is what he's saying. Listen in.
Global liquidity has tightened, US interest rates going up, commodities soaring, and obviously on the back of that, the earnings growth for Indian equities and corporate India has not been commensurate with the kind of valuations that we've really seen at the start of the year. So you're clearly seeing a combined effect of kind of a lackluster earnings growth, pressure on margins, and anemic demand, and I think on top of that, very high valuations, which has really led to a huge sell-off in Indian equities. And I think that's something which is likely to sustain for the rest of the calendar year as well. It's quite possible that we might see some kind of bounce off here and there, given that the way markets are heavily oversold, but I wouldn't be surprised if the selling continues till the end of this calendar year, as a lot of the FIs try to kind of cut down their exposure to emerging markets, including India.
Okay. Jay Bala of Cash the Chaos also spoke to us about market levels and what he would do in a scenario like this. Hear him out.
The markets in the extreme short term is stretched to the negative side. That doesn't mean the downtrend is ending or the correction is ending. It's still a sell on rise market. I would wait for some sort of a bounce to come in the extreme short term, and then look to short the market if you are already not short on the market. But if you're already short on the market, continue to hold on to it and use bounces to add to your positions. That's the strategy here. The nearest support for the Nifty is about 99.50, which is the 2018 low. When I spoke last time, I said that this is a large degree correction within our ongoing uptrend, and that price objective for this correction is about 9700 mark, and that is still intact. There's no change in it. But in the extreme short term, we could see some sort of a bounce somewhere to the region of possibly 10,200 to 10,400. And that will be a selling opportunity. But once the market reaches around the 9,700 ballpark, or in fact, even as we speak right now, you should have your shopping list ready. When the market gets to those new lows below the 2018 low, that will be an ideal opportunity to position for investors as well as slightly longer term traders.
Okay, so that's Jay Bala's view on the markets. But let's talk about the week gone by. And of course, it was all about earnings. So let's start by taking a look at some of the strong earnings this week. And of course, Bajaj Finance was one of them. Well, of course, this is of course the weak performance. Actually, in weak performance, we had the likes of Yes Bank and. Okay, there you have it. We'll talk about the strong performance. So we do have Bajaj Finance, Dr. Reddy's and Bharti Infratel. All of them, well, Neeraj, the earnings came and they also advanced in trade.
Yeah.
And we did see some strength come through. But there were a lot of stocks which came in line, and of course that saw weakness. If we can have pull that up as well.
Yeah, and some of the performances did look slightly choppy. So this is the companies which met estimates, and Kotak Bank, Wipro, HCL Technologies, ITC, which came out with numbers only in Friday's session and seem to be meeting estimates, but for the FMCG business. And Agam, I think if I just want to talk about one stock out of these 5 or 6, that has to be ITC, because the reaction was slightly adverse, because while the cigarette business did okay, the FMCG business did not do that well.
Right, so it was slightly towards the lower end of the expectation, and that's probably the reason why we saw well, ITC come under pressure. We have to remember that ITC had also run up to a certain extent in relation to the other FMCG stocks over the past few weeks, so that's something that possibly played out. And if we can pull up the week numbers coming through, where did we see that weakness in terms of earnings? Yeah, there you have it. So,
this is of course Friday's performance, but so it doesn't quite show what the stocks would have done during the week, because during the week Yes Bank corrected quite strongly, about 17%. But yeah, Hero MotoCorp, Bajaj Auto and Yes Bank, all three coming out with slightly wobbly performances. A small quick clue, if you indeed log on to the website and go on to a wrap that Yatin Mota did for what all the two-wheelers have done, that gives you a nice indication of how Hero, TVS as well as Bajaj Auto did in the quarter gone by, and what is it that they're likely to do in the quarters ahead.
There you have it, but of course we have a whole host of Nifty earnings coming in the next week as well. So we can pull that list up as well, and I can quickly go through that. Well, okay, so this is from this is actually, we have ICICI Bank, L&T and Tata Power. Let's pull up the next set of stocks which will also come up next week. Tata Motors, Tech Mahindra, Vedanta, a whole host of OMCs. What else do we have coming through? And of course ONGC from the Nifty space, along with something like an NTPC too. So all these stocks of course will come in and report earnings. So we'll be watching out for that. And if there is anything else that comes from the global markets.
Yeah, I mean, so if the GDP numbers come out okay and the US markets were to bounce back, if there is confidence that the economy is doing okay, then it might be an interesting one for Monday morning. But otherwise, just keep in mind as we wrap, Agam, we are perilously close to breaking into the 4-digit mark for the Nifty.
Yes.
So that's something that the market will be watching out for.
Yes, absolutely. That is something that we will watch out for. But with that, we're going to wrap this session on the market wrap. That's a sign out from me, from Neeraj and me and the team. Have a good weekend and stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint, and we'll keep bringing you more.